I'm not going to, I'd like to make it a point not to make the same mistake twice, let alone once. But we did make that adjustment moving into our next opportunities in the game.
Super Bowl champion Justin Tucker is a 7-time Pro Bowler, 5-time first team All-Pro, 3-time second team All-Pro, and holds the all-time record for field goal percentage at 89.1%. And after 13 seasons, the future Hall of Famer is out in Baltimore.
The Baltimore Ravens released a statement today, essentially thanking Justin Tucker for his years of service and how great of a kicker he was. They stressed that this was just a football decision, but he's out amid allegations of sexual harassment and sexual assault and just general creepiness that go back many years in and around Baltimore and all of the spas and massage therapists in the area. And you mentioned the future Hall of Famer. I'm wondering if that's still going to be true if this investigation doesn't go his way.
Well, it should be. Like that part, I don't think factors into the Hall of Fame talk.
Well, it does. It's not supposed to.
It's not supposed to.
It's not supposed to. Yeah, he's obviously a Hall of Fame player on the field, but we know that the people who vote for Hall of Fame, people who vote for Pro Bowl, All Pro, and all that, they inject their personal feelings into those votes as well. That's why Terrell Owens had a bit of a struggle getting in. People just did not like Terrell, even though he was an obvious first ballot Hall of Famer. So I don't know. I mean, it's kind of difficult for special teamers in general to get in anyway. So
yeah, but when you're considered the all-time great, typically those guys can get in.
Typically, Steve Tasker's not in. I don't believe. And he's considered one of the all-time great gunner, right?
Is Ray Guy? I think Ray Guy is in, right?
I believe Ray Guy is in. Ray Guy is in, yes.
Yeah, so Ray Guy got in. That remains to be seen. Here's what we do know: he's not going to be first ballot. He's not going to be first ballot. Now, okay, if you're not really up on what's going on with Justin Tucker, right? It's up to 16 women now that have alleged some sort of sexual misconduct with him, and this is involving his trips to multiple day spas, right?
Just like spas and massage therapists.
Yeah, like B said, just being creepy. Okay, the thing is, these women, a lot of them, or I think even all of them, don't actually know. They don't know each other. And when the Baltimore Banner broke this story and they said that they spoke to these women, they all had very similar stories of their encounters with Justin Tucker. All right. To my knowledge, up to this point, none of them have filed any lawsuits against him. I think they just want the story out there. And this is a story that's been going on for a while.
Yeah.
Right.
And the story had kind of been out even before it was broken by the Baltimore Banner. There were tweets about kind of Justin Tucker and his behavior, several years before the actual story came out. So like, it seems like people in the area kind of already knew about Justin and how he operates, but it just came out recently, after the season, for everyone to see. And the Ravens organization, I feel like kind of made themselves look pretty foolish here. You have a guy who's not even performing to the level that you have come to expect, and then you have all the allegations, and you still held on to him until early May. They should have been out on Justin Tucker as soon as they were able, whether that was the first day of the season or even, just after the season ended last year. But they kind of held on to him. They're not really talking about the off-field stuff. They're acting like it's just a football thing. And I don't know, they've made themselves look, they've lost credibility, I'll say.
Of course they have. I mean, listen, we've said it on the show before. the Ravens organization is no better than any other organization when it comes to things like this,
No.
right? They're no better. They have that reputation of being a stand-up organization, but when it comes to these type of decisions, when it comes to a player that can help out their team, they're going to side with the player.
Yeah.
So, no, it doesn't surprise me that they want to kind of do the due diligence, see if they can get another kicker in there that could hold down the spot, because that's really what it was, right? They want to make sure that they got the kicker that they wanted to replace him, and they got that in the kid Luke.
And they just wanted to get a look at him in rookie camp, and like, okay, yeah, his leg works. Go ahead and cut Justin.
Right, because if Luke wasn't looking good in camp, if he was hooking them too much or whatever, and he didn't look like he was ready, Justin Tucker's making the team. All right, guys, this real quick. I know you're enjoying this video, but I want you guys to take a minute to go to LBHTShow.com, sign up for our newsletter, buy some merch, check out some of our older videos. That and more at LBHTShow.com. Also, if you want to join our membership, go to patreon.com/LBHTShow. That's where you can get bonus episodes, you can join our Discord, and you can get some nice shiny coins like this one.
And you can get in on the just restarted book club. We're just getting that going. We've got our first book selected for this month, The Nickel Boys by Colson Whitehead. So we're going to be reading that and have a discussion on that. And if you are interested in joining, again, patreon.com/LBHTShow.
Back to the video.
Yeah. Now, back to our earlier conversation about whether or not he gets into the Hall of Fame, right? You remember the idiot kicker?
About to go in and throw a touchdown to Jerry Rice. We're honoring the Hall of Fame. We're talking about our idiot kicker who got liquored up and ran his mouth off. So,
remember that guy?
Yeah.
No, not Vinatieri. Mike Vanderjagt.
Vanderjagt. Not Vinatieri. Vanderjagt.
From the Colts, who was at one point the greatest kicker of all time, right? He finished his career with a field goal percentage of 86.5. So not that far off of Justin, right? And he retired in his last season was 2006. He's not in.
Yeah, but nobody compares him to Justin Tucker.
No. But what I'm saying is, at the time, he was the greatest kicker, or one of the greatest kickers of all time, right? And then he said some stupid things publicly, and then he went left on the field for a season. And then it was all over.
Yes, but we can't think of any clutch moments from Vanderjagt. Not saying he didn't have them, but people like Justin Tucker has that reputation of, hey, if they get within 50 yards or so, that's an automatic field goal.
Sure.
Hey, if it comes down to the game and they're within 60 yards, that's his range. He could shut out he could close out the game. He has that reputation. That I think will help catapult him in. You don't really think of any other kicker like that.
You don't, but again, like I said, Justin Tucker wasn't a thing when Vanderjagt was playing. Right.
Sure.
He retired several years before Justin Tucker came into the league. So Justin Tucker would have essentially played 1 or 2 seasons before Vanderjagt was eligible for the Hall of Fame. So he wasn't Justin Tucker at that point, right?
No.
And so you're still looking at this guy like, hey, he was one of the best kickers of all time. And then Peyton insulted him publicly, and then he missed a kick by 45 yards, and we just don't like him anymore.
Well, no, but he didn't have an impact on the game the way Justin Tucker did, right?
But that's not really up to kickers though necessarily. You can only kick where they send you out there to kick, and he made an incredibly high percentage of his kicks.
He did, but and look, sometimes that's what it is, right? Like it depends on the team that you're on, and what positions they put you in. Unfortunately for Vanderjagt, he was put on a competent team where they had a high power offense and they scored a lot of points, and they didn't need him to make these kicks. Not fortunate for Justin Tucker in the Ravens organization. Harbaugh a lot of times plays for the field goal.
Yeah.
And like the one that we all know about, the Lions one where he kicked it like 64, 65 yards.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we played for. Unbelievably, we played for that kick, and he did to him twice.
Yeah.
Yeah,
but that's just an aside. Whether or not he actually makes it, because I mean his career may not even be over at this point, right? I mean he was just cut by Baltimore. I would not be shocked if somebody else gave him a shot at some point this season, unless the NFL comes back and says, hey, yeah, you did it, you're suspended. Like, unless that happens, I think he's going to get another shot. He's going to continue playing and try to get back his former form. Obviously, it's just not going to be with the Baltimore Ravens.
So here's my question: should he continue playing?
I mean, listen, I'll just say this: if I'm a GM, I'm not calling Justin Tucker, and that's partially due to the off-field stuff, but also partially to the fact that he's 35 years old and looks like he lost it. And I'm just going to look elsewhere. I'm going to look for a long-term answer at kicker. If you're a team who feels like you have a shot, at making a run this year, and kicker is what you're missing, I can see why you would maybe give him a call. But how confident are you at this point that he's even the guy to fill that role for you? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Justin Tucker should hang it up. I think he should have retired the minute these allegations came out. He could have just retired, and that would have helped these things die down a little bit, right? You had a full career. There's not much more you can do. You came off a bad season, but people will forgive you for that. You're still the most accurate kicker in NFL history. People are always going to remember you for the great moments. You could have easily stepped away. Yes, you want to defend your name if you feel like you're being wrongfully accused, but just say, hey, you know what? I'm gonna call it a career now. I'm not gonna answer these questions. I'm not gonna be a distraction for my team, right? Yeah, we'll let Mike Green do that. But yeah, I understand. Like, that's something you've been doing for 13 years, and you might feel like, hey, that's just what I want to do. I'm not ready to hang up. No player is ready to hang it up, but you gotta look at the situation and say, is it worth it to keep going?
Yeah, most players don't retire; they get retired.
Yes.
Very, very few are in a position to kind of leave on their own terms, and thanks to your actions, you are not in that position now. And you mentioned Mike Green. That is obviously the reason why the Ravens wanted to make this sound like it was 100% football decision, because you can't even bring up the off-field stuff after you just drafted Mike Green in the second round.
Exactly. Mike Green is new to the NFL, and look, we don't know what happened with those. He had some very bad allegations from before, but I'm not sure all the details of that. Apparently, I guess charges got dropped, or if there even were charges, I'm not sure. But they said, hey, we did our homework on that. We're comfortable. We'll move forward, and maybe Mike Green doesn't have any other issues the rest of his career, in the NFL. So they can roll that dice on him now because he's young, and his slate is clean going into the NFL. Now, if something happens, all that stuff will be brought from before, and the Ravens will have to have a very tough conversation then, especially if he's as good as advertised.
Yeah, because again, if something happens off field with Mike Green, the answer should be that he's cut immediately. But that's going to obviously depend on how he's performing. I'll just go ahead and call that the Terrell Suggs factor, right?
Yeah. All right, that is it for this one. Make sure you guys go to LBHTShow.com. Also sign up for our Patreon, patreon.com/LBHTShow. And make sure you're here on Wednesday, 7:15 p.m. Eastern Time for the LBHT Show. We'll go more into this on that show. And that is it for this one. Peace.